Hello everyone. Today, finally, we're going to start doing some fighting formations. Now, to be quite honest, I don't know how much I'll play, as far as like a full game on camera, just because the game can take time. And this is the first scenario, but even the first scenario, once platoons take some damage and then you have to split them down into the squads, and you've got squads to deal with, it might not play out fully. Most games, you play to the objective or until you run out of turns. And that's why sudden death in this is important, because for this introductory scenario, it's like 4 turns, and then you start doing the sudden death check. So it is possible that you could play 4 turns, but just from what I remember, even one turn could take a while, because you have to deplete all of the order cubes, essentially. And so there's a lot of back and forth in a game turn. So we'll see how it goes. Also, the challenge with me to play solo is like what to do. There's so much as far as like with like the bidding and everything, as like your initiative and you're buying your initiative points. There's a lot of subtleties that I think play out better in multiplayer. And so a lot of times when I play solo, and I think this is why I set this aside for a bit, it just doesn't feel as special as trying to outbid people and try to manipulate the order matrix. When you do solo, you kind of know both sides' strategy plans, what they would want to do, and I think some of that magic is lost as a solo game. I mean, I could be wrong. That's kind of my opinion. And as I was setting up and getting ready to play, it was kind of coming back to me like, yeah, I see why I don't do this one solo. I think the strength for this game definitely is in face-to-face. So the mechanics still work out just fine. There can be hidden information. You can, in some scenarios, you would set up there's the hidden unit chits and sighting markers, and you've got these things to, I'm not even putting them on the camera, but you've got your sighting markers and your hiding covers for things. So I mean, there can be some hidden elements, but otherwise, yeah, it loses some of the magic in a solo mode. All right, so I'm not saying you can't do it, and it's still an enjoyable war game, but I think this definitely strength comes in a multiplayer game. 2 players is where it's at. All right, but let's just kind of go along here and kind of take a peek at how this works. So right now, the Russian forces, they're the pawn, initiative pawn, which you can't see right now. It is on the initiative track on the Russian side. So the Russians will have initiative for this particular game. And I believe, if I remember right from the scenario booklet, let me look, it says that the fate card goes to Germany. Now, fate card, this is something I think I've seen this in a few Chad Jensen games. I think excuse me, it's in like the Company Commander for Europe, Company Commander Pacific. This is where you get to re-roll. Also, this is the tiebreaker as well. So whenever a scenario ends in a tie and there's 0 VPs after sudden death, the player in possession of this card breaks the game. So, I mean, it's fine. It's just one of those things where I don't think it gets used as much as I think it should in a game. Most of the time when I play with somebody, we kind of forget it's there, and the person who has fate, they just kind of hold on to the card, and it very rarely gets used, because nobody wants to get to the end of the game and not have the fate card if there's a tie, if it feels like it's going to go that way. That could just be us. We mostly just kind of forget that it's there. I can see why that could be useful, but a lot of times, victory points, it's pretty rare that a game really comes down to the wire to where the fate card decides it. So most of the time, that fate card is just a back and forth. The thing that I don't like, and I'd have to reread the rules, there might be something about, playing the card, it says immediately after a die roll is made. And I'd have to reread the rule book, but from memory, I don't know. I don't remember if there was a rule that says you can't play this card immediately after someone else plays the card. Otherwise, it's just back and forth dice rolling until someone says, yeah, let's stop handing this card back and forth. Anyway, fate cards on Germany's side. All right, so Russia is going to go first. So I got to look and see what the strategy would be. So let's take a peek. I know I want to get a couple of control points right here from these houses controlled by the Germans. I could take the road here and take them, or I could go here across the open terrain. Open ground is one movement point. Road movement is also one movement point for ground troops. So I'm only saying that because if I come out here onto this road to take the houses, there could be some opportunity fire, and that might not be very effective opportunity fire, but part of me says, well, why don't I just come around the outskirts and get to the houses and be shielded from, you know, potential fire. So we might try that. So what I would do is I'm going to look to see my order matrix. So that's where we'll go first. I'm just going to pick up the camera and move it. So let's look here. I got to shift this around for a second, and I hope that doesn't mess things up. I hope you guys can see everything the way I do. Alright, so I'm going to look at this order matrix. I think what I'll do next time is turn the camera off and flip it for you. That way you don't get dizzy by me switching things around. But if I want to move, right now the movement for the Russian player, you got to look on the Russian side, is right there, 2. And then we'd have to go and look and what radio-less units are. And I did forget to look that up out of the playbook. So I will just stop here for a moment. I'll be right back. Alright, well, just a quick peek of the special rules, and it's like the first thing in the special rules, so I'll just show you this real quick. Any vehicle that's got this R, and if I remember right from this particular module, it's mostly going to be on the Russian vehicles, and as long as it's got the radio symbol, then it's going to cost double the initiative to give it a move order. Let me say, I think it said advance or move. Let me double check here. Yeah, it moves, assault, during Soviet assault and move orders, which it's marked right there on the order track. And then you have the radio symbol right there on the vehicle, which is fine because, well, the idea is that all the German tanks and vehicles had radios and that not all of the Russian equipment did. But that doesn't mean later down the road you could see that in other modules for other nationalities that might have something like that. And that's cool. I think it's fine. Alright, so I was just moving some infantry anyway. Oh, but why is this important? Okay, so first of all, you're going to decide what you want to do, and you take the cube. See, so for the Russians, I'd want to take that cube. I want to move. So I'm going to take that, and I stick it over here in the used. And now I know every unit I mark for movement is going to cost, well, just that move is going to be 2 initiative I've spent. So what I do is I take that 1, 2. Now for every unit I want to activate, though, it's going to cost me a certain amount based on a mission token that I put on the board. So like if I look over here, I'm going to take one of these markers and I put this on the board. And remember, Russian command radius is 2 hexes. So everything that I activate within 2 hexes of this will be an additional 0. Now at the end of a turn you would flip this to the one side and then eventually remove it, and then it cycles back through, and that just represents generals riding around, couriers delivering orders and things like that. And you know, sometimes they get tired, they need to rest, and it just takes a moment for, you know, command to come back around. Alright, so let's take a look at the map. We'll activate some things and move it. Alright, that's probably why I won't play a whole lot. It takes a moment to explain things before I do it, so that's just going to take time if I explain every single thing that I do. But let's just take a moment to look at it. I have a command radius of 2, so if I put it here, for example, out to 2 hexes would include that building, this hex, and out to here. And then out to here, 1, 2. But I don't know how important that is right there. Well, it's important because it's going to move stuff up along the road as well. I mean, I could put it here in this hex and then, you know, work that way, but I'm thinking as stuff moves this way, well, even if I put it here, I can't hit the road around the corner. So we'll just stick it here. So let's just say we place that right there. There are some rules for moving this, I believe, and I'd have to hit the details on that again real quick. But for now, I'm just going to place this here because it can activate everything here. Now, off the map, yeah, you can't see these. Not off the map, but off the camera, I do have a tank and an infantry unit in some woods I set up earlier. But I don't need to move them. But let's say I did activate them to move. They are definitely out of range of this mission command marker. So when a unit is out of command, it takes 2 initiative to activate that unit. And if it's the vehicle, that would be 4 initiative. These, because they all fall within this command radius, they cost an additional 0 initiative. Alright, and so that does become important later. So for right now, it's only 2 initiative to enact a move, and I would have to decide which ones to move. And you flip them. Oh, I guess I could flip them this way. And this is their active side, and so now that middle number becomes their move points. And I'm going to move a bunch of infantry. We'll just activate all of them to move because we can start moving stuff up to make a defensive position in those houses. A maximum machine gun unit, it's a platoon, so they have 5 movement points. 1, 2, 3. To move into a building does take 2. I mean, and eventually it doesn't give me much of a line of fire. Maybe this way, but not up the road against those people coming. So what I could do, dang, excuse me, I took my Benadryl today, but it hasn't kicked in yet. So let's see here. 1, 2, 3. So I could move a machine gun unit here, and then eventually up into the house or here. Doesn't give me much of a, like a good line of fire against people coming. Maybe this house. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what I can do to show that it's done is flip it back. I think you're supposed to, after the move, you flip everything back, but what helps me remember that I'm done with somebody is flip it right now. Tanks, you have to worry about their line of sight facing. Unless it's a turret, it can shoot anywhere, but as far as incoming fire and how you defend, you want to make sure the front of the tank is facing potentially a stug. Now, yeah, move it for open ground, everything is a 1. Wheeled vehicles are 2 movement points for open ground. I'm not sure why. I guess bouncy ride. Oh, I gotta activate it. Yeah, so this is kind of a pain. Oh no, just gotta remember the easiest way, which way to flip these. 15 movement points. That's fast. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think you get 1 free move. 5, 6, 7. And I'm going to face the vehicle up this way so that its armor is the front arc, and then it's a turret, so you can pretty much shoot anywhere. But you get like a penalty if you shoot out of the forward arc of the turret, so you can, but it simulates, it takes a moment to swivel the turret to shoot stuff. So we'll leave it facing the enemy. Then we'll flip it back. Yeah, and I flipped all these as a reminder that these are all activated to move. So we'll go along the road here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this guy will move into that building. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 movement points for the building. And we'll turn the control to the Russians. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because I'm moving specifically into the buildings, not along the road. Alright, so we now have both of those, so I'll just flip them to their non-active or done side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, he could move in here. 5, 6. So we'll own the houses along this corner. And we'll start moving some people up to support. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they're out of line of sight of everybody. So it's pretty much safe moves. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So move him there as well. So we're just moving up to this corner, and we're going to fight for this corner here. And then this tank will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, you know, there's a Stug. I got a tank. I'm going to actually move this tank up here, and I'm going to try to like maybe flank. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for beyond my free facing. 8, 9, 10, 11. Now that's risky because I do have a Stug here, but the marsh I think will give some hindrance. Let me see. Nope. It doesn't give any hindrance, so that's actually rough. That's not marsh. Rough. Rough is a cover, a hinder of 2. Yeah, we'll risk it. So the Stug could, if I move past this building, shoot, because he shoots on the move. This blue means he can shoot on the move, if I remember right. There's a penalty for shooting on the move, but I could move. Oh, the blue just tells you what type of speed it is. So it's a track. Just let you know it's a track. So we'll risk it. That tank obviously can move, but like this kind of is, well, since I've moved him over here, you probably can't see. Let's see here. Yeah, I moved a T-34 up here. There's a Stug just ever so slightly off the camera here, but all I got to do is move him forward 1, and he can shoot down here at that T-34 and then be protected out of sight. But see, these are those things when you play solo. Since I know what I'm doing, I'm trying to set up for a flank shot, but this guy obviously can see a flank shot and he can just move a little bit, but he'll get a penalty for firing. So, you know, that's good. That'll make it harder for him to shoot at the T-34. But anyway, we'll say he's moved. And that's it. Now, so now because I did that, right, this mission command is down here. And, you know, let me check something real fast. Well, I should have read this, and I totally forgot. I thought you could, I forgot. But a unit passing through can pick up a mission command with it and take it forward. So let's just say the unit that was over here picked that up and moved it with it. Alright, so I'll kind of cheat. I'll go back in time and say they took it with it. But that's important because now, see, all these units down here that were activated to do something have it activated, they've done their item, and now they're flipped over. So that would be the Russians' first play. So we'll have to go look now at the order matrix and see what the Germans want to do. And, you know, first I could look at the map. I didn't look at the map with you, but like I said, I've got a Stug which could fire down at a T-34, move out of the way of the T-34 coming up on the flank, or I can move my Grenadiers down to start doing like building to building fighting. So I would have to say, you know, is this going to be more of a movement or a combat type of action? We'll go ahead and do a movement with the Germans as well, and then probably the next segment we'll do some combat, and you can kind of see what that looks like. Alright, so the Germans want to move. So the movement cost for Germans basically is 3. And remember, we talked yesterday or the other day how some of these orders are swapped based on what, you know, we were thinking that were national priority. And so Germans typically were known for accurate firing, and why that would, you know, change the initiative cost, it's just to kind of add some differences in flavor in the militaries. And so we're saying that for the Germans, maybe because their tanks are more fuel hungry, moving is a bit more of an enterprise. Now they have radios, so they have coordinated movement. That could be the other thing too, is it takes a moment to coordinate all those vehicles to move. Yes, it's on radio, and it's a better deal for them to do versus like the Russians, even though movement's cheap, but the fact is, since they have radioless units, sometimes it could be a more expensive thing for them to do to coordinate. I mean, it's just, that was an interesting concept of the game that I think a lot of people maybe debated over, and probably still do, but it's what we're working with. So if I want to move, right now, the Russians move for 2 initiative. That put the tracker over here on the 2. So if I'm the German player and I want to move, I got to take the 3, stick it in the spent cubes, and go back 3. 1, 2, 3. And now I'm going to activate, choose the units I want to activate for movement, but after they've moved and they're done, then it goes right back to the Russian player's side. And this is another thing that I think some people were maybe kind of confused on the whole system, how it works. The game does most of the time just simply feel like back and forth, back and forth. I do something, you do something, you know, kind of a traditional. It's just that how many units you activate at a time is going to be up to the player, and depending on where your mission markers are. So do I activate a whole bunch of things that are potentially out of command and give a bunch of initiative to my opponent, and then he can do a lot of stuff? Or, you know, that's kind of the struggle when you kind of play solo, is how do I work that, because I know what I'm doing. But with the face-to-face game, that's the part that works brilliantly, is trying to work the order matrix and the initiative to your advantage while trying to figure out how to keep your opponent from seizing the initiative. That's where this is fun. All right, but as a solo person, let's go ahead and take a look. I'm just going to pick the camera up a little bit. We're going to look at the German units, and maybe I will shift the camera around. We'll take a look at where they're going and where the Russians are located. I'll be right back. Okay, so I hope this angle shows a little bit what the German player is looking at. So he's got his troops on the north here, according to my compass is here. So this is the east side of the map. They want to move west. So I have the Russians down here, and they have securely taken control of these houses and those control points, which if I had the victory point tracker, right, that would have shifted some victory points towards the Russian player, but I didn't do that part. I'm going to take a look here and see what I want to do. So if I move troops up, I had in this hex a rifle unit and a tank. They could opportunity fire. So for instance, I'm going to move everything here. I'm going to activate all of this for movement, because we need to get troops up. We need to do assaults. We need to do something. Now, everybody's been set to move. And, well, that's where I got to think here. Where do I want to take them? Also, I have off camera, there's that Stug I was mentioning. The Grenadier unit, I would probably just leave them where they're at. But let's take a look and see what I can do with the Stug. So I think what I'm going to do, because this is for move, I can't like decide to have them fire. I would have to do that on another impulse activation. But see, if you're going to move and fire, that's an assault. So this is just a move. I'm actually going to go ahead and activate him for movement. Now, here's the thing. This would be demonstrating the one thing I forgot. I forgot to place the German order marker. So I'm going to place that over here with my lead Pioneer unit, because my German player has a hex radius of 3. So it would hit all of the Germans except over here. So he's out of command, and they're not radialists, so he doesn't pay double initiative, but it does cost 4 to activate him for movement. So that's giving the Russian player a lot of free initiative just to activate that one vehicle. But we're going to do it. So we're going to move. And I don't have to move that vehicle very far. I just want to move it up behind the cover so this T-34 can't shoot at it. So we're just going to take a move like so. And just take him on a rotate. That way, this guy is completely in his front arc for when we start shooting. Because he's got a little limited arc symbol, a little triangle that you probably can't see. That just says he's limited to basically his front arc for firing. So he's done. Now, what I could do, if I leave that here for just a moment, I could opportunity fire with, let me see if I can get, yeah, can't really get the camera down here very well, but I'm going to see if we can opportunity fire with that T-34 tank, just so we can get that in there. Alright, it's been some time since I did op fire. I just looked at the rules, but that doesn't mean I'll get it right. But basically, after someone expends a movement point, and every hex they move, or every exponential, even over rotating could trigger movement or opportunity fire. But I moved into this hex, so this T-34 is going to go ahead and shoot. So the stud could still keep moving if it wasn't immobilized or anything like that, thus triggering more op fire. Op fire can happen from any number of units that you have on the board, as long as it's not spent. And that's what this number in a diamond is. When you do like return fire, opportunity fire, if I roll that number or less on my attack die, the unit becomes spent. Like it's got to reload ammo and things like that, and it can't be used again that segment of movement for, you know, these different activities. So let's see. I'm going to make a normal attack, and then I'm going to get all the dice out, and we'll take a look at how you do the combat attack with the dice. Alright, if I can get this to fit in the camera, I thought I'd just show you this. The player aid has a nice summary of how combat works. So you're not necessarily attacking a specific target. Since this is like a platoon level, you're attacking the hex. So you're going to pick a hex within line of sight of the firing unit, declare if it's AP for tanks or high explosive for like infantry, for example. Then you determine the attack dice. So what you do is you begin with 2 die 10. So I've got my dice right off here on the side. So you start with 2 die 10. That's the base dice you roll for an attack. And then you're going to make some adjustments based on certain modifiers. So right here, direct fire, yeah, you can see that. So 1, it would be -1 die type if it's assault fire, -1 die if it's long range, which is be triple the range of the unit. -2 die if it's extreme range, out to triple. +1 die, so I would go, like for example, instead of rolling die 10, if it was assault fire, it'd be die 8s. And the lowest die you can go down to is die 6. So there's a few things that you can, you could get a couple modifiers and still shoot, but you want to be very careful about that. So then you have -2 into the flank fire if you have to pivot. So I could, with my Stug, shoot something out of its limited arc, but I'd have to pivot the vehicle, and then that would give me some penalties. Or -1 die to fire into the flank arc with like a tank. So again, it could shoot targets out of its front arc, but it's going to cost a penalty because, you know, it has to take time to move the turret and track the target. Let me see, what range are we? Well, I'm looking here at the AP. It's a range of 7 base. So I have 15 attack strength, 7 range. It's a little sub number you probably can't see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's well within range. So I'm going to take 2 dice and I'm going to roll those and add it to the AP number. And because it's the front, the tank here on its activated site has a 22 for defense. So I'm going to take 15 and I roll 8 and 7. Now there is one concept of the game that is not taken into account here, is some terrain adds hindrance. Some like the rough terrain or maybe woods, will add a hindrance, meaning there's a penalty to shoot through that hex. This is all open terrain, so there's no hindrance. That means the base hindrance is a 1. That just accounts for the randomness of the fact that terrain is rolling, it's not flat, maybe there's some dust, smoke, little things that are floating around the field that makes it hard to see the target. Or just as you're about to shoot, it hits a dip in the ground and kind of dips down a little bit, and then the target angle isn't very good to hit. You fire, it just barely misses, that kind of a thing. But this is a pretty good roll. So that's 15 plus the 15 of the attacking unit strength. That gives a 30. I'm going to take, I got a marker up here for attack total. I'm going to flip it to the plus 20 side. And I'm going to add it to 10 here on the initiative track for the Russians. So I know I have an attack value of 30 for this Russian vehicle. Now see, I didn't have to flip it or anything to activate or to let it know that this unit is firing, because the diamond, that's the side I need. It's an inactive unit firing. So what does that 4 mean? If I had rolled a 4 or less on any of these dice, then that means this unit would have become spent and it wouldn't be able to fire again during the German player's activation. So that means I can keep shooting with this guy if the stud continued to move, if I wanted, or any other vehicle that was unspent. So the only limitation is, does it become spent and need to like reload? Alright, so I'm going to look at my defense. I already have a defense of 22, which is pretty good. And your defense roll is going to be basically 2 die 10, which is the default. Let me see. Double check. Yep. Morale, armor, plus cover, plus 2 die 10 equals your defense total. So what we're going to do then is take these and roll really high. Well, I rolled a 6. So actually, 6 plus the 22 armor gives me a score of 28 versus the firepower attack of 30. Alright, what I wanted to do, I just paused for a moment because I was grabbing the random hit markers. And I had them over here, and of course, I set them aside. There we go, in this big bag. Alright, so what we did was we determined that the T-34 hit. It rolled pretty well. The Stug's armor and its defense roll wasn't enough to stop. So what you do is you take your random pull bag. I know it's clear, but you know, I don't peek. And you draw a damage counter. Now the damage counters are pretty cool because they're double-sided, so it doesn't matter what you draw. You can have them all mixed together. So one side is for infantry with a little infantry symbol, and then the one you want right here is for vehicles with the vehicle symbol. This number 18 is what you would need to roll to clear this particular item, and if you fail to roll, because it's red, that means the unit would be eliminated. Now if I was pinned infantry, I could roll over this number, and we look, I think you roll 2 die 10. Yeah, so it's pretty easy to clear this, but to try and clear this immobilized, this vehicle must have been hurt really, really bad, and so you might just leave it as an immobile bunker. But what you do is you put the damage then on the Stug. So this is where the interesting part of the game comes. So later I can take an action to split my units apart. So for example, I could take the Stug here and split it into 3 individual units, individual squad tanks. Well, I guess it wouldn't be a squad, they're just an individual tank. So let me grab one here. And what that means is, if I can find one of my Stugs, so for example, here, upside down, so the Stug as an individual vehicle has less firepower. Armor's the same. Well, actually, armor's a little bit lower. It's like 1 point lower. And that just represents the fact that as a platoon, possibly they got smoke and different things. Not the smoke put on the field, but maybe there's just little things that they're doing to try and make themselves harder to hit as a unit. But their fire goes down because now they're not firing as a group, they're firing as fewer vehicles, possibly. So what I would do is I would just, once I split this group down, I would remove the platoon, put in 3 Stugs if I wanted to. Let me just see if I can quickly find the 3 Stugs. And let's see here. Here's another Stug. And then I'd want 1 more Stug. So yeah, you actually end up with a lot of markers for the game. And a lot of your markers are just your individual vehicle markers. So what I would do then is I could split it into the 3 tanks, take the platoon marker off, and then put that mobility hit on one of these vehicles. So now I would know that this vehicle can't move because of the mobility hit. It could still fire, but these vehicles are free to work and do whatever it is they want to do. And you know, what does that mean for you tactically? Well, the thing is, when I've played before, I've had some people split their platoons down anyway, because then they could actually try, just as a platoon, they could try to flank somebody. Have like two targets here, maybe put them in different hexes, and then they could move a vehicle, you know, down around here at some point. So yeah, you get less firepower, which depending on your dice rolling, you know, can have a huge effect on the game. But it's giving you 3 shots instead of 1. So sometimes your odds of getting a really good score go up. Whereas if I'm doing a platoon roll and I roll really low, well, this is a good roll, but if I rolled really low with my platoon, then that means the platoon kind of wasted its shot. So there's advantages to having your platoon or the squads. So if you take damage, most people are going to go ahead and deploy their platoon into the individual squads. That way, if this guy messes up, these 2 are still running at full strength. Because if, let's say for example, this platoon kind of stays how it is, here it was in the active, it gets hit, and then later, if I didn't pre-split this down, and let's say the platoon took another hit, it's automatically eliminated as a platoon. So I would have to deploy it to the squad immediately. One of the vehicles is dead, and a damage marker gets placed on one of the remaining squad vehicles. So yeah, sometimes the strategy is split your platoon as soon as a vehicle is damaged. But that will really depend on the timing of everything. But I can't do that right now, just kind of explaining for future in case we don't get that far in the playthrough. So he fired. He can't move anymore, so he's done. We'll go ahead and flip him back. Now this is one thing. The defense on the active side is higher because he's a moving target. So they gave him an extra point on defense. Interesting. But now that he's stationary, he's a little easier to hit. Alright, great. Let's see here. Oh, interesting. AP went up for moving. I guess that's if they do assault. Oh, it's an assault gun. Anyway. Oh, wrong side. So there's his mobility hit. So that's done. All of that just to do something with the tank there. Okay, great. Let's go take a look at the people we originally wanted to do something with. Just trying to fit the camera on the board so you can see everything we're doing here. Now his mission command or mission control markers here, I put it with this lead pioneer. That way as I move forward, this will come too. The problem is I'm in a position now where wherever I move, these guys can take opportunity fire. Okay, well we're going to charge. It's just a move, there's no charge, but I'm going to go ahead and move them up. Now you still just move 1 unit at a time. Even though these are all activated to move, we'll just move him first. He's going to bring the marker with him. The marker you can pick up and drop off along the way at any point. So if I'm going to move up closer, I would probably leave my command marker here. That way there's less chance of Russians taking and capturing it. But we will do opportunity fire. So I've got machine gunner here. Well, actually it's a rifle unit, but they have a light machine gun. That's another special rule for this particular module. If I spend one of my asset cards, and each group started with one, I can activate the light machine gun, which would extend my range out to 3 hexes. Because see, right now, they are 3 hexes away. If I try to shoot, they would be at long range. That would be 1 die penalty. But if I spend my asset card, that would make the range 3, 1, 2, 3. They would be in range. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, well, I was pretty sure that from this hex to that hex is a clear line of sight. So I just brought the laser here to check. Yeah, you can see that. And from center dot to center dot, it goes right along the road. Now, they're in the rough. Let me see my terrain chart. What does it say about that kind of terrain? It says rough. Rough is a cover of 1. Oh, okay. Hinder is only if you're shooting through. I'm shooting into it, so it's going to give cover. Okay, so that means their defense is going to be 1 plus their defense of 12. So they have a 13 defense. So I think I had a defense marker to help me remember stuff like that. 1 second. Well, I just thought about it anyway. It doesn't matter what the defense is right now. I just have to track the attack strength, because the defense you would roll after you make the attack. Because if you fail your attack roll, it doesn't matter what your defense is. So let's take a look here. So this guy here is doing the opportunity fire. So he has a 13 firepower. Again, he normally only has 2 range, but he spent that asset card. We'll discard it. And he now shoots out to 3. So there's no penalty. So you start with 2 die 10, just like you would when we did the tank attack. And there's no other modifiers. They're not point blank, it's not long range, it's not extended range or anything like that. So he rolls 2 dice. I'm going to roll them, and I'm going to try and keep it on camera and not knock all these things over here. Well, that's a good roll. Because, 1, I didn't roll a 1, which would have been a hindrance. So this bypasses the natural default terrain of 1, and at 16. So 16 plus 13 is 29, if my math is good. So I'm going to mark my attack tracker at 29. Well, I have to roll 2 die 10, add the 12 for defense, and the +1 for being in cover, the rough terrain. So 13 plus, wow, 13 plus 19. I think that trumps my 29. 13 plus 19, so that'd be, yeah, because that gives me like 22. So that was actually a superb, well, it's like 32, not 22. Math's not my strong suit. Anyway, that is actually a really, really good roll. So the rifle team, because we rolled like 2 8s, 1, it's not spent because it didn't roll a 4 or less. And, I mean, that's it. They defended very well. I could do same thing with the tank. Let's do that with the tank. The tank is going to use its firepower. It has a range of 4. So again, they're well within range of the tank. The tank has a firepower of 15. So let's roll. Let's interpret the roll. All right, so this is interesting. So first of all, that's a 13. The 0 counts as a 10. So that's 13 plus 15 is 28. So attack total of 28. But I'm going to put this on here right now so I don't forget. Because I rolled a 3 that's less than the 4 in his diamond, he is spent. So all these units here that get to move, I could not shoot with the tank, but my infantry, because he's spending that turn reloading his weapon, or maybe it's jammed, or whatever narrative you want to put on there, he's done. After this activation, and they all go back, and it's now the, you know, we would check for the Russian player, the spin markers would come off. But for now, that tank is done shooting. So the Russian player infantry shot, the Russian tank shot, this infantry unit is still capable of moving. So it was what, right here? So it's only moved one. So I can move into this house. Oh yeah, let's do that. So that's 2 movement points. I'm going to drop the mission marker here. That way if something happens, the Russians can't take it. So he's going to move in the house. So that's 2 movement points. He still has 3 movement points. I'm going to move into this house. That's 2 more movement points. So he's moving house to house now, and he is in range here of these Russian units. This Russian rifle is still active. He did not become spent. I didn't shoot here because he would be, well, I tell you what. Let's look at that for a second. That's right along the hex spine. So technically, the Russian player could have shot into the building. Let's do that. I know I want to move my Pioneer up, but we're going to go ahead and shoot at here. I just wanted to check. Well, I'll do the defense check here in a minute. I keep setting my charts down. All right, so the German player, or the Russian player, is now within a range of 2, right? 1, 2 of the German player. So he's going to shoot the German player. No penalties. I don't have to spin an asset card, which is fine. I already did. So I'm going to roll my 2 dice. All right, well, it's 11. 11 plus 13 is 24. All right, so I have attack strength of 24. Now, I rolled a 4. So that means I'm going to put a spit marker on the rifle unit. He can't shoot again this segment. So if the German player survives and moves up to the house, he's not going to shoot. This guy probably could shoot. I forgot where I was supposed to have him at. I forgot where he moved from. Let's say he was up here. We'll just pretend. Benefit of the doubt and move him forward. I probably bumped him with a camera leg or something. Anyway, if I move up here, he wouldn't be able to shoot again because he's spent. Even though he sees the enemy coming, their group is in disarray, they're reloading, they're yelling for ammo, they wouldn't be able to shoot. So that spent can make a huge difference in the flow of the game, because now all these troops can come and they spend all their time shooting at this one unit. So good on him for taking that sacrifice. But let's see how his defense is. So I have to now look, here's my defense chart. He's in a building. Building gives cover of 4. That's a huge, there it is. That's a huge benefit. So his defense becomes 4 plus 12 is 16. I roll 2 dice 6. 9. So 16 plus 9, 16 is 25. Which is 1 higher than the attack total. The attack total was 24. So again, this German unit is doing great. They moved into the buildings. The buildings are blocking, fire just like they're supposed to, and he can still move. So where were we? Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 movement points to move up to this building. They are charging. I do think this rifle unit was back 1, but since I'm not sure, I'll give the Russian player benefit of the doubt, and he's going to do opportunity fire. Now that they moved into the building, they're going to see if they can maybe hurt that unit. But now we have a wall. So I look at the wall. It's impassable to wheeled vehicles. Doesn't give cover, but it's a hindrance of 4. It does have an asterisk. Or 3 cover versus direct fire across the hex side. Oh, look at that. Now, if I was back here, that would be 3 defense as well. But because I think I'm cheating, because I don't remember where he was, I think I'm cheating and moving him up. He's going to be firing over the wall, so he's not going to get that +3 cover. All right, so that's fine. But I will get 4 for the building, 12 for their built-in defense. Now, because this guy's doing opportunity fire and he is adjacent, his dice are going to upgrade from 2 die 10 to the 12s, which are these big oranges, red ones. So that's pretty big. Let me just double check if I have any other modifiers. It's not assault, it's not long range, it's not extreme, it is short range. So yeah, wow, this could be very bad. The Pioneer unit may have met its match. Now remember, buildings provide cover, they're an obstacle, they don't have hindrance, so he just has cover 4. So let's see. How do we do? Wow, this is actually a really good roll as well. It's 14. If that had been a 1, then that would have missed because there's a natural hindrance of 1 to your attack rolls. So we have 13 plus 14, so that's 27 attack. That's still a pretty good attack number. That's why you really want to take advantage of those changes in dice, so like getting up close range and things like that. That could be detrimental here to the German play. There's also a rule in there, I have to look it up, but I think if you have a certain amount of firepower over what the defender rolls, you can eliminate a unit, but I'd have to look that up. Right now, though, my values between the defender and the attacker, they haven't been that different from each other. So let's go defense. 12 plus 4 is 16 plus, well, plus 11, so 16, that's 27. Now, unfortunately, oh no, it's the same. That ties the attack value. Let's see, because I think you have to have a higher defense. Defense is the value you're trying to beat. So let's see. If it is greater or equal to, oh, it's a miss. If the defensive terrain or defensive total is greater or equal to the attack value, it is a miss. Oh, lucky. So I had an attack value 27. I have 27 on the defense, so that's a miss. So once again, they've come out on top. And because I rolled a 2, that's the spent value of the rifle unit. So right now, this guy, I could say, I'll flip him, he has established a foothold, and they are done shooting. So now all these units can come down, and there won't be anything here to shoot, except this guy over here. Well, let's see what happens here. Now, because they've already been activated to move, it doesn't matter where the command marker is because they've already been activated. That's why I flipped them. So let's do 1. Now, because they used the movement point, this tank is going to shoot across here. So opportunity fire, same thing. Now, they have a range of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, a couple things about that. So let's see. We're going to start with 2 die 10. He's long range, so he drops to 2 die 8. And it's not in his front arc, so it's a loose arc, so that's a drop again to 2 die 6. So there's something about this that is very, very, makes me not want to shoot, simply because, one, it's going to be very hard to get a really good roll to hurt that infantry. 2, my spent is on a 4, and getting a 4 or less on a die 6 is pretty easy, but it's going to let me take a shot. Now the other thing too, though, is over rough. Rough has a hindrance of 2. That means if I roll a 2 or a 1, the shot automatically misses, and it could be spent. But what else am I going to shoot at? So let's take a shot. Okay, well, so there we go. Bad luck all around. I got the 2, so the hindrance of this rough ground, and I guess technically 2, that might even be, yeah, it's just 1 hex. If it had been like 2, then that would have just taken the higher, so it still would have been 2 hindrance. So it's the bullets and the rounds kind of got lost within the terrain of the map. Okay, so the shot automatically missed, and because I rolled a 2 and a 3, that's either both of those are less than 4, then that's spent. So now this guy can continue moving, and there's nothing here to stop them. So they're coming up. 1, 2, if I do the road, 4, well, let's see here, 5, 6. I guess you could do that, right? Move a point along the road, and then come into this hex 2 because we want the building. I'm going to say that's legit. And see, nobody can shoot at them. But I'm going to leave these 2 units here. Because remember, you attack the hex, not individual unit. So when I start these guys shooting again, they potentially could lose somebody. I'd have to make a lot of defense rolls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to move grenadiers here. And we're going to move this machine gun up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, we'll put some troops here. Since we're consolidating down here, I'd have to think about, do I move to the woods or something like that. Then we'll move him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna put him point blank because we're gonna do some point blank shooting. All right, so that's all the German moves. All right, so with that, yeah, it takes a little bit of a while to explain things, show stuff, but that would be like the first segment. That's not even a turn because we still have a whole bunch of cubes left on the order matrix. So the turn doesn't end until all the order cubes have been used up. But I will take off my spent because it's like a fresh map board now. That activation's done. These guys have reloaded. And the Russian player, because the initiative marker is on his side, right? I'll just move that attack. And he would have to decide, what would I do? He'll probably want to fire. Fire for the Russian was here, so he has to take the next cube up, or any cube. I could spin the 9 if I wanted and do a fire order. You can't spin or add lower cubes to do a higher order cost, but you can take a higher order cost and do anything below it. You still pay the same amount. So if I want to fire and I spend off the rally column here, that's still 4 for what's normally 3. You know, so again, it just kind of have to watch what you're doing. So that's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That still leaves initiative on the Russian side, so I can activate units I want to fire, and then once that segment's done, boom, the Russian player could go again. So we're going to do just that. And this will be the last thing we do. We'll do this firing, and then we'll be done. Now, the mission command is still on 0 because it doesn't change until basically at the end of a turn, it would flip. So they're still at 0. Their commanders are still here shouting orders. So he wants to shoot. He wants to shoot. Oh, flipped the wrong way. He wants to shoot. And those guys are all blocked. Well, yeah, he doesn't have AP, so he can't hurt the tank. And then those guys are protected. So that's it for the Russian there. What could he do? Now he's out of range. Does he want to shoot? I think my T-34 that's over here on the other side of the map that you can't see, we're going to activate him to shoot because he's got a Stug there that's wounded. So let me show you that real quick. Can you see that? I'd have to move this map quite a bit to fit it all. Oh, it fits. Fits just fine. Yeah. Right there. Alright, so he's activated. Now, because he's out of range, firing is not a radioless vehicle activity. So he only has to pay a cost of 2 initiative because he's out of command range. And we'll resolve him because he's the oddball. Let's do him right now. So he's got an attack value of 16, and it's within range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 has a range of 8, and he's in his firing arc. So he's going to roll 2 die 10 and add 16. Ooh, and there's no hindrance. So lucky him. He's got 7 and 16. That's 23. That's actually not a very good attack. That's pretty low. So the German player has a defense of 21. Well, unless I roll really bad. Yeah, so the German player easily bounces that. 21 plus 19 bounces the shot. Alright, so nothing to worry about there. So we'll flip this guy back. Now, the German player does have the option to do what's called a return fire. Whenever you shoot, and I probably could have looked at that over here. Well, those were opportunity fires. But when you do an attack, maybe you could do it to an opportunity fire too. But the opponent gets a chance to return fire from one unit on the board gets like a free attack. So if you shoot, they get to do a free fire as well. It's kind of like an opportunity fire. You have to check to see if it's spent and whatnot. So since he fired, he's going to try to return fire. Why not? So he's in range. He's not affected by firing because that's a mobility. So let's roll here. We'll get an attack total. Alright, so this didn't work out quite as good. First of all, he would be spent. So if I had like more enemy units over here that could potentially fire, he would not be able to fire again as one of those return fire units. He's spent. But I take that 6. I add it to his 22. So that would make his total attack value a 28. Okay, so this T-34 got brave, fired, but the Stug has him dialed in, sends a shell screaming back. I roll my defense, which again I roll a 6, plus a defense of 23, that's 29. So he barely scrapes by. He makes it. So the Stug fires back, misses, but is now spent. So he can't do any more firing. So what we're going to do now is position the camera a little bit better and take a peek at what we got over here. Alright, so here we are. We're going to go ahead and do the Russian assault here. Now it's not an assault because there was two items here. Advance, which is what, I'm trying to remember if that's what, that's melee infantry. So advance is if you want to move in and do melee combat. They're not doing that. We're just going to shoot from adjacent. And then assault, that's when you want to move and fire. Let's see. Do tanks do an advance? That's melee infantry. Oh, assault also for melee vehicles. So yeah, we're just doing a standard shooting. That's a little bit cheaper on the order matrix, but pretty soon, well, you know, when you think about it, and this is kind of neat. Again, the order matrix I think is kind of well thought out because firing and doing some of those other actions are cheaper, whereas assaults and advance are a little more expensive because, and you usually don't use those right away. That's when, you know, maybe, you know, the bullets are kind of running low. So do I really want to spend like 7 initiative to do a normally 3 initiative cost fire action? Most people at that point will just usually say, okay, well, let's do an assault. I gotta spend 7 initiative. Let's do the assault, or let's do the advance for melee, for infantry. Because by then your people are tired in the turn, or well, maybe not tired, but you know, it just, to me, kind of has a cinematic feel. You've done a bunch of shooting up to this point, shooting, units get close. Now is time when you would do your advance or your assaults and do your melee combat. And those later actions in the term kind of seem like that would be the natural flow of things, and the order matrix kind of follows that pattern. So it's kind of cool. But anyway, my train of thought derailed. So let's come back here. So I've got 3 guys activated for firing. I'm going to go ahead and fire with this unit. He's out in the open. That probably wasn't smart to leave him in the open, but I wasn't expecting the Germans to effectively move so quickly to the west and take up these defensive positions. So that did leave him kind of out in the open. So he's going to attack this hex. So remember, you attack the hex. So both of these units will end up making defensive rolls. So I'm going to take my 2 die 10, but again, it's adjacent, so that's going to bump it up to 2 die 12. So that is his 1 saving grace. He's going to pump in a lot of firepower. So I'm going to take these dice, and they kind of roll off camera, but it's actually a pretty good roll. So it's 17 plus 13. That's 30. That's a pretty darn good attack number. Alright, so then these guys will have to make their defense checks. We'll start with this grenadier. They're both 12, but we'll start over here. They're in 12 plus 4. They're in a building that's 16. I gotta roll 2 die 10. Alright, so that's 8. So what did I say? That's 16 plus 8 is 24. That is less than 30. This rifle unit really poured the fire on into those buildings. So I'm going to have to take my random wound token. I'm going to grab a counter. And this one drew... Oh, it's broken. And the whole counter is red. I guess I got some different colors here. I don't think the color of the counter itself matters as much as if... well, it might. We haven't had... We'll worry about that later. But anyway, he grabs a broken. This guy is really bad off. He cannot fire or move. Wow. Okay. Well, same thing. 12 plus 4 is 16. Roll my dice. That would be... What is that? 12. 12 and 16 is 28. So again, that's less than the firepower. So yeah, that guy, that rifle unit did a very, very good attack. Well, this is shaken. Oh, okay, that's not too bad. He's shaken. Shaken, not stirred. Well, very good. Okay. So he did that. Now, we would have to check for this guy. So he's done his firing, so I flip him back. He's not active anymore. Let's do him. So he's going to shoot. Same deal. He's adjacent, so he's going to roll 2 die 12. So that's the problem. Cool, I moved him up into the house, but now that he's in the house, they're just getting shot up badly. Oh my goodness. 18. Oof. So 18 plus 23, what is that? 31. I hope. Math is not my strong point. So that's an amazing attack. The way that things went over here, I don't see this defense holding up. So the defense is your value plus the 4 of the house and my 2 die 6. That's 16. Well, look at this. That's 20 plus 16. That's 36. So defense held for the Grenadier unit. They hunkered down a little bit better. Okay, this unit over here. Their defense. Well, it is 13. Well, it's 13 plus 16, so that's 29. That's just a couple points shy of the attack. So they actually get hurt again. But what happens is, see, this would be an example of where they're now going to have to take a casualty. So let me find the infantry for that, and we'll break that down and show you how that works. All right, when you hit a platoon that's already has a marker on it, that platoon becomes what they call eliminated. So this platoon comes off. That means one of the squads in there has been killed off. And then you take and replace that platoon with 2 squads, and the marker that was on that gets transferred down. Now, if we do more shooting at some point and cause casualties in here, then this squad that's already been hit would be eliminated, and then we would have to check to see if that squad holds up. So yeah, the Russian firing has been very, very effective. So he's done. That rifle unit's done. Let's see. So we're down to that tank. All right. So the tank, it is adjacent as well. It's the same thing. Because it's adjacent, it's going to roll to 12. So boy, moving up like that was maybe not such a good idea. So they're going to take their dice. Well, this isn't as bad. That's 8 plus 16, so that's 24. That's more manageable. That's a lot more manageable for the troops in this building here. So again, we're going to start with this platoon here. Hopefully he holds up. So he's 16. Oop, rolled the wrong dice. And I just messed all these up. Way to go. So they're 16, well, 16 plus 7 is 23. And that's still 1 point less than the attack value. So this platoon is eliminated. And this broken is going to transfer down. I'm not going to pause the camera this time. I've got 2 grenadiers here because I figured that was going to happen. So we place 2 grenadier squads. One squad gets the broken, and then this grenadier is fine. Okay, then this grenadier, well, that happened to the platoon. So the platoon is done. Then I had 2 squads in here. So they both have 12 defense. So this squad first, because we're trying to beat 24. So 16 plus 11 is 27. That squad's fine. This squad rolls a 6. So 16 plus 6 is 22. That's less than the 24. They will take their own individual hit marker. And so those two platoons that rushed up to take that forward position are sucking it really bad right now. So now he's pinned with an 8 recovery. Okay, well, there you go. That's all the shooting. Then, because the Russian tank had activated, that actually puts the initiative on the German side. So now the Germans, they have some choices. From their position, they're not really in any position to launch an attack. Now, one other thing too, though, is because these units fired, I did forget this though, every time they fire, somebody could return fire. They could. And I didn't do that, and I should. And I think I'll do that for the tank. So let's just say this tank, because it was activated to fire, it's going to be on the activated side. And this tank is going, well, Stug is going to shoot back. So maybe we can get something out of this. The infantry, I probably should have them return fire, because there's a chance they could have, disrupted or hurt the Russian attacker in return. And it's those things that I tend to forget when I solo play. But when you're doing your face-to-face, remember, you have a chance that whenever the enemy shoots, you can have one of your units return fire. And if I remember right, the rules, you don't have to shoot at the unit that shoots. So I could, in anticipation, see the firing here and maybe have these units that haven't been shot at yet, they could have shot at him, and maybe they could have hurt or disrupted that guy before he had a chance to fire. So there's some thought and strategy that goes into the game that way. Or I could have maybe had the Stug shoot at the T-34, any number of things I could have done, and as long as I didn't roll that spent number, they would be able to be eligible to shoot back as needed. But let's just say we're going to end out the turn and say that the Stug is shooting back, and it's point blank. So he rolls 2 die 12. He gets an 11 and a 12. That's about as perfect as you can get. So 23 plus his 22. That's like a 45. That's a huge attack value. That T-34 is not going to roll that on the defense. So yeah, he rolls a 10, and his 24. That's a 34. That's an admirable effort. But that Stug at close range just really tore him a new one. So we're going to draw a random counter and look for the vehicle side. Oh, it's an unconfirmed kill. So that tank there can't fire, can't move, and there's a good possibility that if I try to rally it, yeah, it's not going to happen. So, bam. Now, unfortunately, the T-34 did shoot into the building and did cause another wound here to the German, but the return fire worked out to the benefit of the Stug. In fact, because the Stug didn't roll a 3, he's not spent. So if I did have more Russians that could shoot, he theoretically could be used to return fire. For instance, I could have used him to return fire at this infantry unit that shot, but there would have been that risk that I roll a 3, 2, or 1 and he'd be spent and couldn't return fire at the tank, right? So there's lots of options. That's what I like about this. There are a lot of options for you to consider when you play. Okay, well, that would be it. The Russian segment is done. And then we go back to the German player. Now, I have a lot of wounded units. So the thing that I might want to do, well, one, I'm going to take this spent off because the Russians are all done. Okay, but now looking as a German player, if I just move this real quick, it's going to cost me at least 5 points to run a rally. We're going to rally. Okay, so let me move this back over without having to shift it all over the place. Alright, just a quick reposition of the camera so you can see where all my rally is taking place. So the rally action, if you look on the back of the rules, they actually have this nice summary of the orders. And rally is you're going to start with 2 die 10. Now if they're in melee with an opponent, they could rally, but they get -2 dice to roll with. But I'm not stacked with a friendly command, but I'm in a building with cover more than one. So I get to change that from the 10s, and I get to roll my rally checks with 2 die 12. That's great. Now, it does say that a failed attempt with a red colored rally number eliminates the unit. These are not in any way red, but I'll go show you my German tank here in a second. Also, one thing that I have to do is show you the initiative tracker when I move over to the tank, because I guess technically I would need to activate all of these for, put them on their active side that are going to rally, but they're not moving. I'm just going to rally, and I know which ones are doing it. So let's go here. I got to get a 12 or higher. So that's only an 8. Okay, so he fails to rally. This needs a 6. Alright, he gets it. Easy. So he's good. That'll go back in the bag. This guy's an 8. 6 and 7. Alright, so he rallies. Not too bad. I mean, I hate having to spin an activation to do that, because these guys are all just going to shoot him up again, but, we'll see. Now, I'm just going to shift this. Hopefully it's not too much. But I got the German tank. This German tank is not in command range. So because it's out of command range, it's 2 initiatives. So I got to advance the initiative tracker 2 more. I already shifted it 5 because I spent 5 order cube from the snipers, and I had to shift it 2 more. So that puts this on the initiative tracker side of 6 for the Russian player. But here's the thing. This is a costly rally, because if I don't make that, that vehicle is essentially out of the game. The crew abandons it and they say, we're done. So if I get 18, but look, he's not in terrain that has a defensive bonus. So I'm just going to have to roll 2 die 10. Now, that's not as good. So let's roll a 19 or 20. Well, it was a good effort. It's a 14. So that Stug blows up. So we're eliminated. And I guess technically it says it eliminates. So if I follow the standard elimination rules, now this is what sucks. If I follow the standard elimination rules, then the immobilized would transfer down to one of these. So that mobility kill that we got earlier means that, because remember, this is like a platoon, and also it's a period of time. So it's not just like one shot from one tank. This is multiple rounds being exchanged back and forth. And so as we start to get in and assess the damage, it turns out that I've actually had a couple of vehicles that were wounded with this immobility. What I could have done was just accepted the fact that the platoon was immobilized, and I could have maybe done not a rally, but I could have just deployed instead, and then left the one immobilized Stug behind, and then had these 2 go forward, kind of like this deal, left him with the immobilized marker, then I'd have 2. But what I did here was I tried to rally as an entire platoon, hoping to get my full firepower, full movement and whatnot, and instead I made things worse, because not only was this vehicle eliminated, but this one also in the narrative was immobilized as well. So for the future, I probably won't try to rally this off. We'll just leave him as a immobile bunker piece. That would leave this guy to move if needed. So now when they attack, I'll be able to have 2 units that get to shoot. But the problem is, because now they're 2 units instead of 1 platoon, if they're out of command when I issue an order, like I probably could have dropped an order here and then they would be in command radius, but I didn't do that. So it's just those little choices that can really change the tide of the game. But that's where we're at. So you've seen most of the mechanics. We didn't do artillery. We didn't do the melee. Melee is pretty similar, but there's also your aircraft artillery chart, which has an accuracy die that you roll, and you check here to see exactly where the round lands, and then you do targeting rolls and things like that. Then there's I think the number down here, if I remember the chart, this is like the attack value that you have to beat. So like if it's a light battery versus what's the target, that's like the attack value of light battery against 12 morale infantry. Anyway, so there's a few things we didn't cover. So now this has probably been a long video. I have no idea how long the video is up to this point of recording. So I will stop it here because it's pretty lengthy. It takes a long time to explain things. As I played the game, here's the summary of thoughts. As I played the game, I started out pretty hesitant, and I wanted to make sure I was getting things right because I haven't played it in a couple years. As I played a little bit more, how to play and some of the mechanics came back rather quickly. In a few places I felt real strong about what I was doing and maybe just looked up a couple of things. But like riding a bike, it came back really well. Some of the things that also came back were the fact that this is not a short excuse me, it's not a short game to play. This can take a long time to play out, even one turn. And I felt that way sometimes even with like Combat Commander, because you could go through your stack of cards and never draw an end turn, but yet that stack of cards can sometimes take a long time to draw through if you're not, not very generous with swapping out cards and discarding and whatnot. So this kind of feels that way too. It's just, yeah, it can take a while before you hit one turn. Sure, this game goes 4 turns. You start at turn 12, turn 16 is sudden death, but oh my goodness, one turn takes forever. Now, if you've got 2 people that understand the order matrix and you're pretty familiar with the rules, it's going to go quicker than what I demonstrated for you. But as you're learning the game and then trying to remember it like a couple years later, you're reminded that, yeah, this can take a long time to play. So difficulty, like if I'm going to pick difficulty, honestly, once you kind of get some of the basic mechanics down, it's not overly complicated. I mean, I kind of like it. I like the fact that there's the spent number for the die, that the counters are double-sided. You have some stats when you're inactive and you're doing like op fire and whatnot, and then the other side are the stats for when it's active and you're moving and actively doing things. I think that's neat. I like that you have platoon version and squad. And that's where the game kind of bogs down a bit, because as I eliminate platoons, I then still have the individual squads to eliminate. And the individual squads are definitely weaker than the overall platoon. And so sometimes they feel like they're very ineffective until both sides start to get attrition, and then it's individual squads against individual squads. Then you as the commander have to decide, when do I split and when do I regroup? This can let you take units of a similar squad type and put them back into a platoon. So there has a very much a organic feel to how you control the troops, Do I make platoons? Do I do squads? What fits best in this situation? Do I split so I can eliminate the possibility of having my platoon eliminated completely? Or, there are quite a few choices. And I think that, as a solo game, like I said, is it playable? Is it doable? Yeah, it certainly is. Does it leave a lot of decisions for that one person? It sure does, but ultimately I don't think it's that bad. As a face-to-face game, I still think that's where this one would shine the best, because then your opponent, is going to be very sneaky about how they make some of those decisions and what they do. So overall, I still think it's a good game, and I hope that you did learn something from this. And, if this is the kind of game you're interested in, I really don't think you're going to be disappointed. I think when they add Kharkov and you're going to get some more noticeable units, see, like this here, it's Stugs and T-34s, but I'll be honest, because there's only a few vehicle types and a few infantry types, you could have labeled these all Tigers and Panthers and Elite Guards, and I would have felt no difference in gameplay. Like, it doesn't matter what they were labeled, because there's so few base unit types. It almost kind of feels generic. Yeah, there's a difference between the German and Russian units, but it really doesn't matter what they were called, because basically there's no tanks for the Germans. There's like the Panzer III. There's a Panzer III. Panzer III, you got some Stugs. There's a half-track. But then for like the Russians, there's a couple smaller light tanks. T-34 is the backbone of the army. But from what I've seen, Kharkov will bring in some bigger tanks, and I think that one will have Tigers. And then you'll have some more unit types to play with. And at that point, then I really think you'll start to see the game shine, because those different unit types will have a completely different stats, and that's going to really start to open up gameplay, because you'll be able to take components from this base game, intermix it with components of that game, and make some truly epic games. I think this needs the expansion to really, really come together. Yes, this is a fully functional game in itself, but it really needs that expansion to help you bring this to life. And even as a solo player, just the fact that if I could have Tiger tanks and do Tiger missions, like really focus on armor, that'd be good. If I was going to say that's a complaint, I can't read the mind of people who didn't like the game. I really can't. But I think maybe, I don't know why you don't like this. I've heard people say because they didn't like side view drawings on the counters when there's facing. It should have been top down. That I heard was a complaint. Maybe the fact that there's a lot of fiddliness when you have to go from platoon to the squads, so you're breaking one counter down into 3. You know, maybe there's just a lot of management, especially if you have a very large game. But I think maybe if you had, with Kharkov, you could make kind of your own type of Kursk type of scenarios where it's just armor. That might have a different feel than mixing your infantry and your tanks. Because if we did melee and you had infantry melee a tank, I think they'd be able to kind of whittle down a tank. And this then is making you think about your tactics, right? Do I keep my tanks without infantry support in the hex? Little choices like that. So yeah, I don't know why people don't like it. If you don't like the game, you can tell me. Maybe it's the order matrix you don't like, the fiddliness of the initiative system. To each their own. I get it, but I think that if you gave this game some time, and like I said, maybe as a solo game, not so much, but face to face, I think this game really does shine. Anyway, that's just me kind of rambling and sharing some thoughts. If you have some opinions, go ahead, leave your thoughts, what you think, and otherwise we'll see you again for another game. I don't think I'm going to do any more of this on camera. I might just play around with this a little bit more to kind of get the nostalgia out, but I'm going to be moving on to something new. All right, so I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I will talk to you later. Bye.